just a manifestation of, as you say, Trump derangement syndrome. They will do anything they can to weaponize it, weaponize whatever they can against Trump. They were for tariffs. Now they're against tariffs because Trump is for them. They were for border security, but now they're against border security because Trump has adopted the concept as his own. So they just don't want Trump to win. They will go to whatever length they need to undermine this president.
I mean, we joke about it that President Trump could cure cancer and they'd find fault with it because they would say he's putting out the pharmaceutical companies out of business. But
watching the world burn, watching the world burn. July 20, 2025. Let's get into it. Wasn't that great of Lindy Lee up front? Nothing worse than a woman scorned, eh? Maybe a guy too. I think her disdain for Democrats is on par with mine. The thing is, she won't talk about the deep topics, and I will. So I wanted to hit on the recent developments. So far, I think we're upwards of rescuing about 38,000 children that the Biden administration, or Democrats in general, threw into child slavery and child exploitation or child rape, or whatever you want to call it. So you can see we're well on our way to finding the 350,000 children that the Democrats wanted to exploit for profit. You got a neighbor. If they're a Democrat, they're a pedophile. I'm going to tell you that right now. They didn't care one bit about the fact that children were being sold into slavery and in brothels all across the nation to be raped again and again and again. That's who the Democrats are. See, I call them out. I call them out for who they are, whereas Lindy Lee, she tries to be nice about it. So anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit of cybersecurity stuff just for a minute. Because if you didn't know, I'm rebuilding my studio slowly but surely. And, the first step for me, which you wouldn't have to enter into but to a certain degree, was to get all the backups straightened out. I've got hundreds of videos that I have to back up, and they weren't very well organized, and I had some videos on this backup device and that backup device, and some of them I needed to delete, and of course I do a lot of downloads, LibreOffice and all kinds of tools, and all that needed to be backed up and synced up, and of course I got 28 years of computer files and stuff that they needed to be synced up, backed up, deleted, cleaned up. I'm just crying on your shoulder, but I'm just telling you, you might want to take on a project like this. Now, there are a couple of things I've discovered that I think that might benefit you. I've always kept a system image. You go into the control panel, and instead of using the icons, just use it, and there's one line that says Windows 7, system image backup. I can't remember the exact terminology. And you go in there and create a system image on, a USB, buy you a 6 terabyte, USB drive to back up to. Or, I went to Newegg. I got 14 terabytes for $199. I think that's a better deal. You might want to just do that. Anyway, create that system image. But then I got to thinking, how the hell do I restore from that system image? Because, in the past, many years ago, I used to always use CDs and or DVDs and burn it to those. And today you don't even have a CD or DVD drive unless it's an old computer. So I was doing some research, and I tell you how stupid I am. If you go into the control panel, once again, there's and click on the icons, you'll see recovery. And you can make a recovery drive, in which, unfortunately, it erases everything on the USB drive. So my suggestion is go to Amazon. You can pick up, just look around. Like, you can pick up, 10, 36 gigabyte USB drives for $50. Okay, and you're saying, well, why would I want 10 USB drives? Well, because you'll be surprised how many times you have to make bootable USB drives. So for example, so in order to do the recovery, I have to erase a USB drive and make it into a recovery, a bootable USB drive. So that, boom, that USB drive's got nothing else on it but that bootable. Now I can put some files on there. So it's not like it's a total waste, but that's one. So then I want to install Linux on some computers. So I use Yummy, and that's another bootable USB drive that I got to do, you know, with multiple boots on it. And then I want a 36 gigabyte drive in my router, or 2 of them, you know, so that I can back up across my network. So that's 4 USB drives right there. Then I want to give a USB drive to my funeral home so that they've got all my stuff on there. That's 5 USB drives. And then I want to give one to my lawyer so that he's got all of my latest financial information, because he's going to be taking care of my finances upon my death. So that's 6 USB. You see how it goes? So, you know, go on and, you know, pick you up about 10. And of course, you probably got some along the way. Just saying. All right. The other thing, well, we'll just get into the video. And as I think of stuff, we'll hit it. So this was Zlat71. And he said Slovakia has withdrawn its objections to the 18th passage of sanctions against Russia. So the European Union now has passed an 18th package of sanctions against Russia. I'm sorry, that's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. And by the way, you got to follow, if you could follow some of the Russian people on X, they're going, I guess, you know, Europe didn't learn that 17 wasn't enough. Oh my God. Oh, you think that Russia cares about an 18th? And of course, you know, Trump says he's going to do that 100% in 50 days or whatever. Well, it's a lot less than that now. What are we down to, about 42 days or so? Anyway, yeah, that's going to go over real well. Russia doesn't give a shit about that. You know, it's like we're led in the West by just complete idiots, man. I mean, is there a leader in the West? I mean, I don't know. What's the leader of Italy, Meloni? She seems kind of square. Well, of course, Orban, I mean, he's squared away like hell. But the reason why I wanted to read this was because I always felt FICO was really smart. But this tells me he's not as smart. It says, not only Hungary and Malta remain opposed, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico stated that he received written guarantees from the European Commission regarding gas prices and the availability for his country. So he voted for the sanctions. Come on, Fico. We're talking about Europe, man. You know, it's like Trump, man. You can't believe a word that he says, or you can't believe a word that the Western leaders say. You know, Trump was in negotiations with Iran the day before the Israelis, and then he came out afterwards and said, yeah, I knew about the attack was going to take place. That was like the event in World War II when the Japanese were negotiating for peace and attacked Pearl Harbor, and their diplomats were in Washington, D.C. We did the same thing to Iran. And, you know, so, but anyway, so, and of course, the Israeli or the European leaders went back on every single agreement they've ever made with Russia. And so FICO's going to think that they're going to guarantee the gas, or FICO. Oh my God, you know, come on, Slovakia. Anyway, I just wanted that. I thought that was just a funny story. Oh yeah, this is cute. So we're going to get into Epstein now, just briefly. You know what? Before I get into that, I want to. Oh, good. I'm glad I thought of this because I didn't put it in my notes, but I was thinking about this. All right, if you're watching the polls out of CNN, they're telling you how Trump is doing great. He's more popular than ever. Oh my God, he's gonna trash the Democrats. And then of course the Democrats are down around 19%. Polls out of, now, and of course all the right-wing commentators are going off on, yeah, look at these CNN polls. Oh yeah, they're freaking great. Oh my God, who the hell believes a CNN poll? Go to Rasmussen, man, if you want to know a good poll. But I'm gonna find the video. This was a pollster. He's never been wrong. Okay, and he was on. And I've told you to watch Barnes and Viva Fry on Sunday nights because it's a really good show and you learn a hell of a lot. It's on Rumble. You don't want to watch it on ScrewTube. Speaking of ScrewTube, I couldn't believe it. I got comments. You know, I've got my new network, Florida Man News Network, Florida MNN. Just get my plug in there. I'm not going to continue to put it up front. And he said, you know, I was watching your video, and when I went into it, you had 5 views. And he says, when I was done watching, you had 3 views. So you can see I'm getting throttled on ScrewTube. So I keep telling you to go to the Burn channel on Rumble. YouTube found me, my new channel, and now they're censoring that. I can't win on ScrewTube. They definitely don't like me for sure. But anyway, it's a great place to test the videos. But anyway, so getting from Epstein, we got this picture up. Well, oh yeah, so we're going to watch a video of that conversation from Viva Fry on Barnes right now.
There are 2 reasons why Trump or bust voters voted for Donald Trump and don't vote for others. One, Trump had to convince them of, and he did, and he overcame it. Swamp the fraud, swamp the vote, come out in big numbers, because they always had this fear it didn't matter. They would just cheat, so their votes didn't matter. He overcame that. The second one is, and it's very simple, it doesn't matter who I vote for, nothing ever changes. The powerful never get held accountable. It doesn't matter who's in power, which party is in power. It doesn't matter if it's the Republicans or the Democrats. They will just let them get away with it. And within a couple of weeks, you saw P. Diddy get off. You saw this guy, you know, we're told to move on from this. It's not a big issue to me personally, although I see how people view it to be a proxy, but it was a big issue to a very important group of his base, the same way that Iran was a big issue to a very important part of his base. And what the Trump administration and the sycophants are doing right now is basically trying to browbeat all of these people who have questions, who have concerns about the direction the administration is going, and telling them to shut up and move on. That's not a majority issue. Well, you know what? You're about to 5% your way to a sad ass plurality. That's what you're about to do, because this one's only 5%. This one's only 10%. This one's only 15%. Well, that adds up to 20% when you put them all together, Dave, right? So you can't just keep dismissing the voices of these people. And the second reason why that kind of a footing will fall flat is because Democrats are not that stupid. It's the Epstein files are not a Democrat creation. It was a Republican administration that gave Jeffrey Epstein a sweetheart deal. He would then go on to nominate and get him confirmed the very lawyer who gave him a sweetheart deal. And it was the last Secretary of Labor, this is Alexander Costa, of course, who was forced to resign in disgrace when Epstein was arrested for that final time before he died in prison, however that may have ended up. But this idea that Democrats are just going to, they're just not going to have an opening for attacks and the optics of this don't look terrible is just ridiculous. And you're only going to have, I don't even want to say the most loyal, because that's not an accurate description. The most loyal of Trump supporters do care about this. They do. The most loyal of Trump supporters are not all. I'm not saying this or using this word to be insulting, but I mean, you have people who question and you have sycophants. And I saw what happened in the first administration when the sycophants were just like running free. It doesn't end well. All right. So, I mean, you can poo-poo the concerns of these people all you want. You will end up in a sad ass plurality, and the Republicans will get crushed in 26. JD, you want to be president? Not at this rate. You're going to get your kicked by the time this is over. And that's the reality. And by the way, they know that. So while all these people cheerlead and clap like a bunch of seals on Twitter and call this one anti-Semite and call this one, some paid influencer shill. By the way, all those people supported DeSantis, and before that, they supported Ted Cruz. So it's hilarious that they're the new standard bearers of MAGA. They're going to cheerlead you right into the ground. 40%, by the way. That has been the minimum strong disapproval for Donald Trump's job as president among independents since he bombed Iran, and it hasn't come down since.
Barnes,
that's the reality.
Well, hold on. I'll get 2 things in. Barnes, how you doing? Barnes looks...
I'm in one of the hotels that Richard Barris's cousins might have had to hide out in now and then, where they're involved in some, how shall we say, extracurricular activity. You got to pay some bills, bro. On the way to the FIFA Club World Cup event,
yes,
I got Trump went right by me on the way there. To slow down, and then on the way back, and he was right above me seating-wise. I was going to lean up to him and say, Donald, could you show me some of those Epstein files? It's been an interesting week, interesting culmination to the week. But second, everything Barra says, what people don't understand is that this is for some people, it's an issue of its own accord. For many others, it's a proxy, it's a filter. I'll give Glenn Beck credit, to my surprise to some degree. Glenn Beck was like, people are looking at this as a way of knowing whether or not they can have trust in our government anymore, whether they can have trust in this administration, whether the radical transparency promise. And all of these people that are in cabinet positions said they were going to do something about the Epstein docs and the Epstein file. Pam Bondi said so. Bongino said so. Kash Patel said so. Alina Habba said so. Now, I always had doubts about whether they really understood the Epstein files because it seemed like they were glamming onto it for getting credibility in MAGA, but seemed a little over their head about understanding the scale of it. But this has been the president's presidency sits at a point's edge, and it could completely collapse in the next month if he doesn't fix things like the Epstein files, and if he takes the bait on what Bibi Netanyahu is here for, which is a continued war with Iran and more conflict in the Middle East, and what loser Lindsey Graham, the only guy he's obsessively promoting right now for office, while he's going against and demonizing Thomas Massie, who wants him to impose 500% sanctions on the world, which would basically screw us. It would jack up oil prices, double, triple, quadruple. All of a sudden, all these success. Right, Richard's exactly right. This should have been a celebratory week.
Yep.
You've got great wage reports. You've got great job reports. You've got the tax bill you needed through. You got the spending on immigration you needed through. You're getting massive self-deportation. This was supposed to, and instead you blow it, bringing Bibi into town, pretending somehow that's going to help you get a peace prize. There's nobody more disliked on the global stage than Bibi Netanyahu, and Trump doesn't understand this. People know, Richard and I, who have all defended Israel at various times in the past, have been pointing out Israel is a political pariah. I'm here in New York City. Mamdani, the Democratic nominee, won because he ran and the election day was right during the Iranian attack. New York City, which you don't have to look up what Jesse Jackson called New York City. New York City is the one that's voting for the anti-Israeli candidate. The Trump administration is at dangerous risk of getting dragged into what Richard's pointed out repeatedly. No presidency wins their presidency on foreign policy, but lots of presidents lose their presidency on foreign policy. Yep. Trump is getting dragged into these needless these sideshows and things that could just devastate his administration by taking apart and picking off constituency after constituency within MAGA. Libertarians, screw you. Anti-war people, screw you. Israel skeptics, screw you. Epstein-directed people, screw you. Transparency people. This is not a way to win. While he's at a great economic position, a great legislative position, it is mind-boggling to witness Trump almost blow up his presidency because he decided to hitch his wagon to Bibi Netanyahu.
I want to say two things to that. The first of all, it should have been a week of success, and instead, it's turned into an abject disaster. And when you mentioned the Diddy trial, Rich, still having Maureen Comey on that trial for whatever the reason. And then when you talk about alienating the base, like the number of responses I've seen to tweets that are critical but respectful, mine. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm not trying to criticize to take down. I'm really trying to criticize to save. The amount of replies saying, what are you going to do, let the Democrats win the midterms? It's like the browbeating into saying, well, you better vote regardless of how angry you get. And they don't understand that they don't need to vote for the Democrats in order to lose. They just won't turn out to vote for Trump. And I think that's the deterrent. What is the percentage, give or take, of an electorate that might just not show up to vote anymore?
I got it, and because the answer to that is different whether we're talking about a midterm or we're talking about the next presidential election. Because, by the way, for anyone who doubts that, all you have to go do is look at the president's own post on Truth Social and go look at the replies. All right, some of them are incredibly respectful, but they're on the edge. They're on the edge, like, look. This was not negotiable for us. This is about holding the deep state accountable. This is about accountability in a very dark government, and you're not delivering on that. So with all due respect, Mr. President, I'm not going to just let this one go. Go look at the replies yourself. All weekend, all we heard is, I told you, see, it doesn't matter who I vote for. That's what we are hearing from people. Nothing ever changes. It doesn't matter. When you're looking at the Trump or bust voter, all right, you were the difference, Dave, between losing an election by like 3 points in a typical electoral, and actually I know Pew had a little bit a different result, but it basically concluded what we did, which is that if it was a normal presidential electorate, Harris would have won that popular vote anywhere between like 1 and 3 points. If everybody would have come out to vote, all of the people that are still targets that are right-leaning or Trump-leaning, really is the more accurate way to say it, Trump would have won this election by at least 5 points on a national level. It would have been a 9 o'clock at night, we're done, go home. And he won he won. It was a strong win, don't get me wrong, but there was more out there to go get, is my point. So coming out of 24, the number one goal for the Republican Party was to keep these people on board and continue to reach out to the population that does care about this stuff. They don't think that, I released this poll a couple of weeks ago. A quarter of these people, Dave, don't believe we should have any role in the Middle East whatsoever, let alone one that decides who can and cannot have a nuclear weapon. They don't believe anyone. Move on. The Middle East is going to be fine, right? Same thing with other parts of the world. When you're looking at Kim Jong-un as a more developed nuclear program, why aren't we screaming from the rooftops? He was yesterday's maniac. Why isn't he a vital national security threat? See, the big problem is that a lot of people take these normal people as stupid people, and they're not stupid. They're just disenfranchised, they're disgruntled, and they're busy trying to make a living in a world that's hard for them to have. By the way, 60 years, best wage growth in 60 years, completely overshadowed by bombing Iran, right? So you're stepping on your own successes for things that are not core promises that you made to this part of your coalition that matters. Honestly, you're talking about not being, I think the bombing, and you're asking me for specific numbers, and I'll give them to you, bro. The bombing of Michigan cost him the bombing of Iran cost him the state of Michigan. It's done. All right. If we were to have an election today, Donald Trump would lose the state of Michigan to Kamala Harris. Right? You're not getting back all of those voters in Dearborn. How's that mayor ever going to look into his Lebanese constituents' faces and tell them again support Donald Trump? They can't do that. Saginaw, Macomb. You're looking at several 3 to 5 point declines. You do that all across southeastern Michigan, and you're looking at a solid 3-point loss. I mean, that's where he's at right now. Wisconsin was a hair on a donkey's butt, bro. I mean, he barely won that state to begin with. He needs all of Northwestern lumberjack country, Bayfield, Douglas, right? He needs Ashland. He needs all of those counties at 43 to 45% in order to carry that state. Other Republicans can't do it. He can. Why? Because it's the birthplace of progressive labor, and they care more about wages and trade and not getting into wars, not bombing the Middle East, right? Transparency in government. So they cross over and they'll vote for a populist candidate like Donald Trump. Ron Johnson does well there too. That's why he's able to hold on. But after these piling up failure, I don't know. Wisconsin maybe have a little bit more resilience in a state like Michigan, but probably not, Dave. And you're probably looking at those two as well. So, it's not just how much you would have lost from 2024. It's the fact that going into this midterm, you're going to have the low propensity base compared to Democrats who have now the higher propensity voting base, more educated, whiter, older. They're already going to have a turnout edge. You can't afford to piss off one person that cares about the Epstein issue. You can't afford to turn away one anti-war voter. You're already at a disadvantage. So, at this point, the situation's already dire. And by the way, I texted you earlier before we came on. This is the first Democratic lead on a generic ballot we're finding since Trump became president. Right now, it's looking like Democrat +2, which is an absolute disaster. A 2-point House vote win is their majority plus some.
Yeah, and not only that, I would say that right now the Senate races are, even the Senate that looked really promising for Republicans is now at risk. If Trump does the Lindsey Graham 500% sanctions that would drastically increase, it would be an oil shock equal to OPEC 1973, it will destroy his presidency. If he gets dragged into a ground war in Ukraine or a ground war in Iran or anywhere else, he will lose his presidency. Yeah. The issue of Epstein is a credibility filter, and he keeps screwing it up. And people saying, let's just pretend he's not screwing it up. Let's do the cat turd version of TDS. What that did, Richard and I were the only people screaming early 2020, President Trump, do not take the bait on closing down the country. Do not take the bait on listening to Anthony Fauci and turning over policy to him. And even retweeted me, said he wasn't going to do it. And then a week later, he got coerced into doing it. Those of us that were screaming about it, said it could endanger his presidency, were right. All the yes men, all the sycophants who think they're supporting the president by just saying, yes, Mr. President, no matter what he says. Even if he says the opposite of something, all of a sudden they're, yes, Mr. President. They're not helping the president. They're hurting the president because they're putting him in direct harm's way. You want to keep him out of harm's way. You want to keep MAGA out of harm's way. And that means you've got to divorce yourself from Bibi in Israel, divorce yourself from Ukraine, divorce yourself from the war whores and the deep state crowd. Don't go around screaming how wonderful Lindsey Graham is and how terrible Thomas Massey is every day. This makes Trump look like the idiot. Trump look like the guy who's out of touch. The Trump White House that's disconnected. Now I get him coming to, and to your earlier point, Viva, go back and look at the history of Trump's tweets or truths, especially on truth. He has never had as negative a ratio as he did on this statement.
It was categoric, basically universal, save and except for some spam. I want to bring this one up because this is what I don't think people truly understand. Fuck that. Dems are no better than Republicans. Let's just say Dems are worse than Republicans. The issue is that you're not going to get a MAGA supporter to vote for the Dems now. They're just not going to vote.
That doesn't work for them.
And a lot of working class minorities and millennials, they will vote for someone like Memdani because he's now the change agent. He's now the reform guy. He's now the anti-establishment guy. Ro Khanna is now using this as an issue. The left populist movement, he is gifting them. He's making the Democratic Party anti-war again, which I'm all in favor of, but politically it's bad news for Republicans. He doesn't need to look like Donald W. Bush. And right now he looks like Donald W. Bush, even though that hasn't been the substance of his goals, because he keeps getting distracted needlessly. And this was the biggest own goal in history. It doesn't matter what your excuse was. Let's say you looked at the file and nothing that you thought was there would be there. Well, one, how do you know it didn't used to be there? How do you know that the people, there's no way Pam Bondi is being honest when she said she reviewed all the videotapes. No one believes her. She didn't review the file. And everybody knows she didn't review the file, just like she's hardly reviewed any other file. She finally got to dismiss, to her credit, the Dr. Moore prosecution, but it should have never got here. And she's like, golly, gee, I just discovered this. How long have you been Attorney General? I mean, how do you just find out 6 months in? I mean, I'm going to be like Richard Barris. I'm going to have rant after rant tonight. But this is just ridiculousness. I mean, this is absurd. This is incompetence. Incompetence. And it starts at the top. The commander-in-chief is being incompetent in how he's handling this matter. And swampy Susie Wiles is not the answer. And Pam Barbie ain't the answer.
I just want to bring this one up. Fat fingers. I can't get my. Barnes has always been anti-Trump. It's the come on, guys.
Imagine the delusional world you have to be in to fancy yourself to believe that.
So
I heard all this during COVID. We both heard it during COVID. Oh, you're not really being Trump loyalist. You're not loyal to Trump by letting his entire administration go off a cliff's edge. You're the traitor when you just cheerlead rather than say, hey, you're near the cliff, Mr. President. Don't jump off it.
But can I just point out, Dave, I mean, before you were having a comment, I don't know if you saw my response to it or my reply to it, but you before were trying to have a debate on X with a guy who was a sycophant last administration, literally argued against Robert and I, saying Robert Mueller is not a good guy. This is not some 4D chess. This is not a fake prosecution against Michael Flynn. The guy is going to give up his family home, which is the only thing he has to his name after nearly 40 years of service to the country, because they're out to get him. Robert Mueller isn't some white hat 4D chess game. These are the morons that are making accusations like that. Why? Because he read it off a 4chan post? Come on, guys. This is not very serious debate. Like the numbers are the numbers. It's not my opinion what I'm telling you. I mean, this is I wish there was some way to like couch this in better news, but it is. I'm not like coming up with these suggestions because I don't know these voters. I know these people. I've been spending years talking with them. Nobody knows them like I know them. They are sitting out. And David Plouffe and Axelrod, by the way, never would have thought in a million years, they never would have dreamed that the Ohio River Valley Obama voter would then turn around and vote for Donald Trump. Not once, twice, but 3 times. People change loyalties. Not everyone's partisan like viewers are partisan. It's not like that in the real world.
Put so much faith and hope in Trump as their last hope. They have given up on American politics, many of them. Yep. They think that they're liars and traitors who steal their jobs and kill their kids.
Yep.
And they're done with it. Trump promised to be different. This is not being different.
Yeah.
This is being Jeb Bush. I didn't vote for Jeb Bush.
These people will be gone forever. I'm just going to say, if this keeps up, and honestly, I'm not even sure how you get some of them back that you've already lost. The biggest dips that we've seen so far are among black men who voted for Donald Trump, Hispanic men who voted for Donald Trump. I used to tell Robert all the time, just shocked by how many in the other category, right? Muslim, self-identified, religious, voters, just these voting blocks that you never see support a Republican candidate. Just blown away by this for years, Dave, leading up into going through the Republican primary. And by the way, while all of Ron DeSantis's pollsters called us fake and blah, blah, and lobbed all these accusations at us, totally right. These are the people that were always going to be the most difficult to keep. And the number one priority of the Trump administration, the Republican Party overall in total, was to keep these people and build on these people. They will disappear into the ether for forever. I mean, nothing's forever in politics, but they're not going to rise again for a Republican. They'll rise again for somebody on, the populist left, and they'll give them a chance 10 years from now. Just like, by the way, a lot of Ross Perot's old coalition voters did for Barack Obama when he came out of nowhere in 2008. So the major problem with people who think they're pundits and think they're political analysts and they know about all the numbers and the coalitions is that when they're looking in the mirror, they think the person that they see back in their own reflection is like everybody else, and that they can apply how they feel and they think to and take those and make assumptions about how these other people think. Well, they supported Trump. They must think just like me on this. They must agree with me on this issue. They must see this as I see it. And that is completely wrong and completely erroneous. His coalition was several groups, and one of them is this loosely affiliated, very dejected group that had just been, like Robert just said, it's a miracle they even put their faith in him to begin with. Some of these people we spoke with, they haven't voted since they were in their young 20s when they believed in somebody once upon a time, and that day has long been past until this guy came along, or maybe it was today is an anniversary. Maybe it was the attempted assassination and it woke them up and they thought, you know what, this guy may really be a threat to this group of people, the ruling class who gets away with everything all the time. Well, our jobs are shipped overseas. Our kids are shipped overseas to go die in stupid wars. And whatever it may have been for that group of, that person individually, they put their faith in him. They put their trust in him. And it's not good enough to just do what you did last time. It's not good enough to just be better than the other Republicans, better than the Bush. That's not good enough for them because that's not what you told them you would be. And again, the biggest thing that, the theme of the weekend is, it doesn't matter who gets elected. So, these people droning on and on about winning the midterms, you have no prayer to win the midterms without these people. No prayer whatsoever. Yeah. I mean, they're living in a fantasy land, guys. If they think just carrying on like this is going to win them the midterms. I saw somebody, Kurt, and I like Kurt. Kurt Slick, he's nice. Guys, man, we've known each other for years. He's the only issue that's going to care is the only issue that people are going to care about in the midterms is the economy. Really, Kurt? Then why did you lose in Biden's midterm? You should have, by all accounts, stomped Democrats. You didn't because they have the high turnout coalition now. You have the low turnout coalition. And you can't afford to browbeat anybody. You can't. I mean, this is crazy. This who is crunching the numbers for these people, Robert? Like, we
know some of these
clowns,
people,
bro. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm over it too.
I mean, Chris LeCivit has always been a clown. I mean,
Come on,
that's the
bro.
kind of prick that would. By the way, he was a guy.
What is it? 2 + 2. What is it?
Well, no, Chris LeCivit, for those who don't know, ran Trump's 2024 campaign, was heavily involved in making a lot of money off it. I don't know how much you can really give him credit for anything that took place.
Going to get white women back?
Yeah, exactly. But the other, I mean, Chris LaCivita was cheering Trump's impeachment in his first term, right? And this guy is the one he's rewarding while attacking Thomas Massie. I mean, it's insane. But it's very simple. The core question is, will Trump drain the swamp, or will the swamp drain Donald Trump? And right now, he's at serious risk of the swamp draining him. And if it drains him, it won't just drain him. It will not only drain the Republican brand, it will drain. Is this what Steve Bannon is going on about?
Yeah,
he's saying this summer is going to decide whether the deep state runs America or we run America. And he goes, and if we don't win, it could be the end of America. I know that sounds like exaggeration. It's not. If you understand what's happening, what Richard's been talking about, looking at the numbers for the last 20 years. We are really at a cliff's edge as a country, as a nation, as a constitutional republic. We cannot afford this corrupt administrative bureaucratic state, these neocon, neoliberal war whores, and these deep state actors to continue to corrupt our politics, of which Epstein is a perfect example.
What's his approval on inflation? And Robert, what are they talking about with these other issues? What is his approval rating right now on the economy? Let you all in on a little secret. It is negative. What is his approval rating on inflation? It is negative. It's not because he didn't make any achievements or he hasn't done good things or we're not moving in the right direction. It's because he's stepping on all of that news with this other nonsense. That is what's going on here. He should have been talking about nothing but the CPI, one time even declining over the last 3-month rolling period. Instead, we were talking about Iran. 60-year best wage growth. Instead, we're talking about Iran. Then it rolled right into this. And it was not the only mistake. This has been an issue for basically since the honeymoon period ended, guys. Since the honeymoon period ended, it has been one misstep after another. And it's a shame because he has been doing a lot. He's gotten a lot done. You know, the fact that no tax on tips. Are we talking about that right now? No. What about the fact they even got this big behemoth of a bill through? And we weren't talking about that at all. And their messaging is already anemic. Instead of discussing how we just got work requirement reforms back, right? When it came to that. And, you know, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was not allowed to sunset, which would have been a massive tax increase on me, you, everyone listening probably to this podcast. Nobody's even discussing that right now. I mean, it's about optics, right? And Robert said it before. Trump, this is only going to happen two ways. Either Trump's going to drain the swamp or the swamp's going to drain Trump. And it doesn't even matter which way you think right now. You looking at the camera right now. It doesn't matter what you think. It matters what these other people think that we're talking about right now. They think Trump's getting drained. Right now, they think Trump is becoming more like the Republican Party, not that the Republican Party is becoming more like Trump. And they're the only ones who matter. You have no one else to vote for. Let's be honest. Who's Mark Levin going to vote for? She going to vote for the next Hillary Clinton? He's going nowhere. It's the worker in the Ohio River Valley. It's the people who turned away from Biden in Scranton or Bidentown in Northeast Pennsylvania. That's who matters. By the way, Daryl from Pennsylvania, did anybody watch him on Two-Way? He said, I will sink Republicans in the midterms over this. And that was over Iran. I wonder how Daryl's feeling right now following the Epstein debacle. I mean, I'm telling you, this is much more dire than any of these sycophants either understand or maybe they do and they're just the worst kind of sycophants who lie as well. I think most of them are just stupid. But for those both groups of people, you are in danger of wrecking this whole thing. This whole movement. And I'm not telling you that because I disagree or agree with this issue or this plan or this action. I'm telling you how it looks to the rest of the voters who actually matter. And since you can't win without them, they do matter more probably than you think they do, and maybe even more than you do.
Especially for Trump. His main political capital is his voter support. The moment that disappears, he doesn't have any political capital. He's not backed by
no armor, Robert.
He's not backed by the he has truth, but that has it doesn't have the reaches of X, which he's now turned Musk into an adversary. I mean, there were ways to handle this that didn't require mess up after mess up. But at this point, it's quit doubling down for the love of God. Just come out and say we're going to appoint a special counsel to handle this. At least do that. Can't you have a little bit of common sense, Swampy Susie? And the rest of the White House that should be feeling the heat on this?
right? Dan Bongino was like in lockstep with those, with her, and until just a few weeks ago, because he's smart enough to know their position is it's unattainable. You can't sit there forever and hold this posture and expect people just to get over it. And by the way, he's not alone. Other people do realize how bad this is for him. It's the optics of it. It doesn't matter to the average voter. And I have to explain this to people. You need these people to win. Mm-hmm. He's going on and on about, like, if you don't shut up, Dave, we're going to lose the midterms. No, dummy, you're going to lose the midterms anyway. You've already lost. Democrats have the higher propensity vote. You need all of these people you're trying to browbeat now in a submission to come out and vote to change the dynamics of a midterm electorate. I know some guys are like, this are just too stupid to understand numbers like this, but you're on your way to a 2 to 6 point drumming anyway. You're going to lose 30 seats. You need these people to change the makeup of the district in a midterm electorate. It's not good enough. Trump's not on the ballot anymore. He's not on the ballot. You're not getting the turnout you got in the presidential year. And by the way, I'm not alone. Go look at Pew. They just said the same thing. 2018, you're cooked. A 2020 electorate, you're cooked. You need a recreation, if not an improvement, over the 24 electorate in order to even hold the damn house. Otherwise, you're done.
Yeah, correct. Exactly. To Barris's point, no matter what you think about the Epstein docs, no matter what you think about Trump, that if you care about the administration having any degree of success domestically or globally, you need a different answer on Epstein than this. It's that simple. You could see the tone deafness with the press secretary at the end of the week putting out a photo of Trump and Bibi saying, what a great opportunity for the Nobel Peace Prize. Folks, you may love Bibi Netanyahu. I can tell you, Bibi Netanyahu is hated around the world. He's underwater with the American Republican Party. He is net negative. I get there are people out there that like him. They're boomer cons. God bless them. I know many of them. I understand why. I respect their opinions. But I'm pointing out that's not the political reality anymore. This is not the 1980s. Imagine thinking, the press secretary, that was a great, look at this photo with Trump and Bibi. Now he's going to get the Nobel Peace Prize. No, now he's guaranteed to never get it. This is the degree of disconnect. So it's at multiple levels. It's not just the Epstein files and what it means and what it doesn't mean. It's how everything's been handled. It's been handled in the most incompetent manner because it communicates lack of transparency and, most importantly, lack of intelligence. No one's ever accused Trump of being dumb. Nobody smart has. But plenty of people have wondered about Pam Bondi's political IQ. And after this week, you should have no doubts. She doesn't have any. So, this is the problem, is that those of us that are worried about this are voicing concerns, not because we don't want MAGA to succeed, not because we don't want Trump to succeed, it's because we do. And because this is, when I went ballistic, when Richard and I went ballistic on COVID, we knew the risk. And we were right, and all the critics were dead wrong. They can send their apologies courtesy of Eva Frog. I see somebody pointing out, we're an anti-Semitic channel now, Eva. So I'm
defended Israel for years, Robert. You and I have defended Israel for years on What Are the Odds, on Inside the Numbers, on other people's, on television, on podcasts. We have been that's not even the right word. We have been solid, earnest defenders of Israel against the Palestinian cause. There is no doubt about that. There is countless hours of tape to prove that. But you can't allow any nation, it doesn't matter if it's Israel or Ukraine or anybody, to set the agenda for your country and to determine whether or not a party is or is not successful, or a presidency is or is not successful. Trump was not elected to make sure Iran didn't get nuclear weapons.
Exactly. To Richard's point, look at what happened at the Turning Point meeting this past weekend. These are all young, normie conservatives, part of Charlie Kirk's Turning Point group, but they are driven by populism. And what happened when Tucker Carlson went up there and said the Epstein docs are being hidden, that's wrong, and he condemned it, and he said the reason they're hiding it is to protect Israel. The entire crowd cheered. It was one of the loudest cheers of the whole conference. This is what I've been trying to tell Mike Davis. Love him, great guy, does great work on legal work. He's pretending the Epstein docs have no significance. He's pretending, it's like, this is why you made the mistake on Amy Coney Barrett. God bless you, Mike. is that because you didn't listen to what's happening in the rest of the course of public opinion. You didn't look at it holistically. Young people are not interested in us going off and dying for more stupid wars or wasting money on it. And they're not interested in covering up for career criminals, even if those career criminals implicate MI6, the CIA, and Israel. And let's be honest, that's the only reason to do what they did this week. The timing, the only explanation for the timing was Bibi coming on Monday. That's the only explanation for why they rushed this out on a Sunday where nobody could sign it.
Okay, so I hope that kind of educated you on what's going on. And later in the video, I'm going to do a reading from my most recent video. Because, you know, if you just watch the video, you don't ever get the description. And of course, I have a real good description. I put it up on X. And I do usually put it, but who in the hell reads a description on YouTube or Rumble? I mean, but I will be, you know, so I don't really keep those descriptions. I mean, I try to duplicate what I put on X. It takes a long time. We'll get into that description in a minute. So anyway, you're seeing the picture of that stealth aircraft, and I'll just leave that up while I read the first part of this, because I thought that was pretty cool. That's put out, that, by the way, that picture was put up by Elon Musk. Pam Bondi needs to stand up before the American people. If you haven't watched my video on Pam Bondi, that was 2 videos back, and explain herself. She doesn't get a pass from me. This is Insurrection Barbie. By the way, Insurrection Barbie, much like Cat Turd and you know, and Charlie Kirk and a couple of the other, you know, they were towing the Trump line, going on about, you know, boy, if you don't you know, suck up to Trump, then you're not MAGA, you know, whatever. You know, when Trump told MAGA to just go take a hike. Okay, but she's coming around. And I thought this was a really good post by her. And so I'm just going to read it all to you. It doesn't get a pass from me. Who doesn't say things I have not thoroughly looked into? She handled this horribly. And I talked about that in my video. Even if we're only going to look at the optics. So anybody who wants to actually figure out what's going on with Epstein can do that. But it's an extremely long and painful and tedious process. And it's not glamorous. So that's why most people would rather call him intelligence. Of course, there are things that we don't know. And for me, the biggest things that I want answers to are the following. Now, I've been posting on X. It's not about a list. Nobody gives a shit. I mean, and by the way, I do believe Trump in that I'm sure the Democrats definitely tampered with the information. They had it for 8 years. I mean, why do you think nothing's come out about JFK? Because it's been deleted, man. The intelligence agencies aren't stupid. Now, I keep saying that if it was ever on a computer, you know, that was connected to the internet, the NSA has got it. So I keep telling the Trump administration, look to NSA. You could probably find some information there that's been deleted off of the FBI computers and all the other government computers. And anyway, and I'm sure that, you know, the Democrats set up Trump, because if he releases that information, they probably put a bunch of Republican names in there, and it's just going to be a huge distraction. And I completely agree with that. It's just the way it was handled. Okay? And what we want is we want them to go back with a special investigation and see if we can get some dirt, you know, from some of the trials. There's a lot. And let's just read you what she said. Tapes, suicide, and the 2011 Biden facility shutdown. Okay? Why did the cameras malfunction when a $1.8 million system upgrade was done at the jail? Okay? We don't have answers to that. And we might not be able to get answers to that because everything's been scrubbed. But you know what? If you bring in those guards and everybody and start sticking them down and you know, questioning them, at least we can try. Doesn't look like they're trying. Where are the hard drives with the backup footage? Why are you not prosecuting USVI officials detailed below? The Department of Justice attorneys who worked on the Epstein MPA need to admit that they were freaking pressured by powerful attorneys with money and power to bury this. I've personally looked into at almost every document that exists in this case. And I'm telling you, Bill Clinton should have been prosecuted. Clinton Global Foundation needs to be investigated. Top echelon of the FBI from 1996 to 2018 needs to be investigated. And many should be arrested. Trump isn't covering, and then she, of course, she's defending Trump. And I agree with this. Trump isn't covering for child rapists. No one in the administration is. I don't believe anybody in the administration is associated with the Epstein files. And by the way, I mean, if they release it, I'm sure the Democrats put some stuff in there to make it look like that's the case. I'm not going to make any claims about the Department of Justice as it relates to certain documents and things that may or may not exist. But I can tell you when it comes to the FBI, I don't think that's where the problem is. Now, I'm just going to put the names up rather than read them off to you. You know, some of them are obvious. And so really, I mean, what we want is we just want to know, and this is all Trump has to do to put this thing to rest. We're looking into it. They could say that for 2 years, and I guarantee it'll satisfy all the MAGA Republicans, and it'll put the whole Epstein things to rest. Now, later in the video, now you saw the part about the polls, okay? And we're going to talk about that because don't believe the CNN polls. Those are a red herring. They're not true. Anyway, I'm sorry, getting going again. Either there's no information they can actually release, or the Department of Justice is hiding something, and it may be because of legal reasons or reasons I don't know, but I guarantee you they're trying to protect people who hurt children. Either way, we deserve to know from Pam Bondi, and I totally agree. And so I thought this was an excellent post by Insurrection Barbie. And that's it. I won't be talking, well, unless something new comes out, about Epstein no more. So I think we've beat that to a dead horse. The next topic, well, before I get into the next topic, I promised you a video on what was going on in Gaza in my last video, but it got too long. And this is just taken from Al Jazeera. Let's watch that now.
Gunnis, a former UNRWA spokesman. He joins us from London. Good to see you again, Chris. These sites, they've been designed and controlled in every way by the GHF. They're penning in Palestinians, restricting their movement. They've created the conditions of desperation. Can there be any doubt now that this is a weaponization of aid and that these food distribution sites are essentially human abattoirs, as you once put it?
Absolutely, and I regret having to use that phrase, human abattoir, but that's exactly what they have become. And let's take a step back and look at what is going on. An army which has put a fence around 2.3 million defenseless people, starved them to death. The blockade has been going on since at least 2007. We now have a situation where people are starving to death. They're herding them south into what one former Israeli prime minister has described as a Nazi-style concentration camp. When these starving, unarmed civilians come for food, they're then shot and taken to hospitals where, because of the Israeli army and its supporters, and I'm thinking here of my own government, the British government, but also the Americans, the Germans, Europeans, the list can go on. But because Israel has been getting away with not allowing medicines in, these people who are starving and shot at are then taken to hospitals where they're having to have operations without anesthetics. So that's the big picture. There's a genocide going on. I think increasingly politicians around the world, scholars, human rights people, people with knowledge of what's going on the ground have done the factual analysis, have done the legal analysis. It's a genocide, and it's a genocide which is now seeing a huge concentration camp being established and being live streamed on our television sets. Whatever happened to the phrase never again? It seems that Israel and its supporters believes that that phrase only applies to Israelis and Jews.
Israel has said that it's implemented this distribution system built around the GHF to keep Hamas from stealing aid. Again, with this latest incident, they say the surge was driven by agitators in the crowd who were affiliated to Hamas. As long as Israel is allowed to use Hamas as an excuse to kill and starve ordinary Palestinians, will this be stopped, and will the GHF be held accountable?
Well, that's a very, very interesting question, because the very raison d'etre of the GHF was to stop Hamas getting hold of the aid. We were told in the United Nations, UNRWA and others were told, well, you've all been infiltrated by Hamas, we can't trust you. And here we have the GHF, the very organization apparently created to stop Hamas diverting aid, getting hold of aid, admitting that armed militants are getting hold of the aid. Isn't that a sign now that the amateurs, these cowboys, need to step aside? I mean, 1,000 people nearly killed in 6 weeks. UNRWA, the organization I used to work for, has been doing food distribution, has been doing aid on the ground since 1950. And there's never been a period in UNRWA's history, a 6-week period, in which 1,000 people coming to get UNRWA aid were killed. It's madness. It's all part of a campaign which is ultimately aimed at trying to get rid of the refugees themselves, both politically and physically. Because make no mistake, this concentration camp is a place where people either go to be transited out of Gaza or to stay there and die like a Nazi concentration camp. So what we need to see is for the professionals to be allowed back into Gaza. UNRWA's Palestinian staff, thousands of them throughout this conflict, have been distributing aid, have been giving shelter, water, waste management, all waste product management. This has been going on. We need to come to our senses and to allow the professionals. UNRWA is the backbone of the UN response. It has the aid distribution systems. It has warehouses. It has the list, by the way, of all the people who collect aid. We know, we give them to their hands. We know exactly who these people are. There is a system to prevent Hamas getting hold of this aid. Never in my time at UNRWA did Hamas ever get hold of it. I should say there was one occasion we put out a very powerful statement, and everything that was taken from a warehouse that Hamas broke into was given back. It happened once in UNRWA's long, long history. We need to come to our senses, get rid of this insane slaughterhouse organization, which is allowing 1,000 people to be killed in a month. We need to hand this operation back to the United Nations. They have the professionalism, they have the history, they have the experience, they have all of the infrastructure. We need to move back to that. The world needs to come to its senses. We have a system, it could be flicked into operation in a heartbeat, and that's where we need to go.
Chris Gunness, former UNRWA spokesman, joining us there from London. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, so that was just a video talking about the concentration camps and everything. And I know I keep beating up on this topic, but if you didn't know, about 3 days ago, the Israelis just blew up a Catholic church, killing a bunch of Catholics in the West Bank. Now, they said it was just shrapnel from a bomb, a stray shrapnel. Oh, hell no. If I can find the picture of what the church looked like, it was a direct hit, man. That was intentional. That freaking church was flattened. Don't tell me the Israelis don't want to kill Christians. And in fact, I've heard that even Mike Huckabee was taken aback by the whole thing. He's a Zionist. So I guess, but I think he's more of a Christian at heart than he is a Zionist. Anyways, so that was huge. Let's keep going. So, yeah, we already put that up. All right. So I wanted to talk about labels for a minute and how they can take on no meaning whatsoever. You know, let's just take the example before I get into this reading, and this will be the end of the video, was, you know, the Democrats wanted to call everybody a racist or a white supremacist. You know, depending on if you're a white person, you're obviously a white supremacist, according to a Democrat. And that cheapens the meaning of what an actual rapist or a white supremacist is. The same with, you know, a lot of other terms that the Democrat, or if you're a Nazi, you know, they call Trump a Nazi. Trump ain't no damn Nazi. Now, they're Nazis in Ukraine. You know, the Banderas, they were funding. And I talked about that in my previous video. But yeah, you know, so you cheapen the term Nazi. A Nazi should invoke terrible thoughts in your mind. I'm going to start working my way back, because I've already hiked the dog earlier. And by the way, the old battle axe has the dog now, so he won't be in videos for a while. But sorry, getting on a tangent there. But yeah, so, you know, when you call everybody a Nazi, you know, it cheapens it. Really, what you should think about is the horrors of the Holocaust. You know, when you think of a Nazi, not you know, calling your neighbor a Nazi for whatever reason. You know, so we're cheapening the words. And so the next one I wanted to get into was anti-Semite. Okay. And really, and this is an excellent post because it makes the point that I want to point out to you. And I guess, because I talk about, the genocide in Gaza and things like that, I'm obviously probably labeled an anti-Semite. And that's not true. I love Jews. Jews are great people. In fact, I've had some great Jewish friends over the years. Some of the nicest people you ever want to meet. They're not Zionists. And I've never, in the history of my life, I've never been in a fight with a Jew. That's kind of amazing because I've been in a lot of fights in my lifetime. Hell, I've even beat up women before. Women Marines, It wasn't like they were defenseless. And believe me, they gave as good as they took. But so yeah, I mean, and I wanted Israel to survive, but not the Zionist regime that exists there now. And what they're doing is just unbelievable. Anyway, let's read this because I thought this guy, and I never heard of this guy before. Caitlin Johnstone. Antisemitism means criticism of Israel. That's just what it means now. It used to mean something else, but years of bad faith actors using that word in the most dishonest ways imaginable to defend the most horrific things you've ever seen has changed the definition. It is no longer possible to separate the word from this sustained campaign of mass deception. You can only have governments, institutions, and individuals use a word differently for so long with such high degree of uniformity before the definition changes. Word definitions change over time depending on how people use them. Nice used to mean stupid. I didn't know that. Explode used to mean applaud. The word meat used to refer to any kind of food, not just animal flesh. The meanings changed because enough people started using them to refer to something else. In exactly the same way we've seen occur with the word anti-Semitism. You see why I'm reading this to you, right? I mean, isn't this a great description? Just like I was talking about rapist or Nazi or white supremacist, how we've cheapened the definitions of those words. All right, let's keep going. It's just an excellent post. That's locked in. It's already happened. Everybody knows that anti-Semitism refers to the criticism of Israel and its actions, and anti-Semite refers to someone who does so. Everyone understands this regardless of whether they support Israel or oppose it. This is the definition now. If you want a word for someone who thinks Hitler was correct or uses triple brackets and your post big nose means online, you're going to have to make up a new word because anti-Semite is taken. You can't even really use Jew hater either because that meaning is being polluted in the exact same way anti-Semite has been. You have to make up an entirely new word and use it consistently. Whew. Man, my arm's getting tired. But you see what I'm talking about? Words can take on new meaning, and the AIPAC lobby and the Congress. I mean, think of the kids that were protesting on campus. And if you watched, hopefully I found the video up front, they're talking about how Trump has lost the youth vote, okay, because of what we're doing. And I say we. The United States and Israel are exterminating the Palestinians. And so the youth vote is not going to vote for MAGA or Republicans in the midterms. Okay, I'm just telling you that right now. And we've also lost, I've pointed this out, Wisconsin and Michigan, because no Arabs are going to vote for Republicans. Okay? No way, no how. Not with us genociding the Palestinians or basically killing Arabs in general. Israel just bombed Syria not too long ago. Israel spin masters will deny this publicly, even though they know it's true. They'll say it's possible to criticize Israel without being an anti-Semite. But if you ask them to name someone who regularly and forcibly criticizes Israel's genocidal atrocities in Gaza, whom they don't consider anti-Semitic, they won't be able to. Every single person who criticizes Israel with the appropriate consistency and force is branded an anti-Semite, or perhaps self-hating, if they happen to be Jewish, without a single solitary exception. These aren't my rules. They're the rules of the Israeli apologists. I'm just pointing out the obvious fact that these rules have been set. And so if you follow, there are Jews on YouTube who are against the genocide, and that's exactly what they call them, self-hating Jews. In fact, there was a senator that was being questioned on Capitol Hill by Code Pink, who was pro-Palestinian and anti-genocide, and of course the woman was a Jew, and the senator looked at her and she goes, "You must be a self-hating Jew," and so that's the label that that's how they get off off of the topic. They don't want to address what's really the question. The question is, are you for the genocide in Gaza? Oh, you must be a self-hating Jew. You see the deflection, the ad hominem attack as it exists? All right, so we're going to do the reading of my post on the genocide in Gaza, and that'll be it for the video today. Peace out. Stay free. Oh yeah, well, another thing I thought of before we get into the reading here was a few days ago, Tulsi Gabbard released the files to show that Barack Obama and his administration was in a conspiracy against Trump. She declassified them and put them out. So you can see it can be done. So Trump could declassify the Epstein stuff and get it out. Okay, or with caveats, saying we know that this has been altered, or we even feel this has been altered. You do your own research. All right, so I wanted to read you what I posted on that video, my last video. So administration and Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, or the Trump administration, and Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, seem to want to bomb all of the Middle East. In addition to the extermination of the Palestinians, they're bombing all of Lebanon, attacking and bombing Iran, and now we can add Syria to the recent list. The bloodlust seems unsatiable. When we add Donald Biden's continued support of Ukraine with billions in U.S. taxpayer currency dipping into the strategic weapons stockpiles, one wonders if some sort of invasion of the body snatchers has taken place in the White House. It also appears that Trump wants war with China in the Pacific Sea over Taiwan. Far from being a peace president that Trump ran on, his neocon and Zionist government seems bent on waging war around the world. And then it goes on with just basically attributions and, of course, the Al Jazeera description of what took place in Syria. So anyway, I just wanted to read that to you because you don't really get to see my descriptions, when you just watch the videos. All right, I know this got a little long-winded. If I think of something else, we'll get it. I'm looking forward to getting home and working on my video studio. I've told you up front, I'm actually ripping the computers apart now. Hell, I got failed equipment in those computers. And by the way, so you can take old computers and turn them into really good servers, by installing Linux, maybe upgrading a little bit of hardware, until the motherboard fails, or the video card, because video cards are so expensive. You wouldn't want to buy I'll give you an example. If you wanted to buy a really old video card for an old motherboard, you'll pay as much for an old video card as you would for one of the new, Cat Daddy video cards, because they're few and far between and they're hard to find. Most people just trash them. So at that point, you just trash the whole computer. The motherboard, the video card, the old DDR3 memory. Everything is obsolete. But until everything fails, you can use those old computers for a long period of time just by loading a new operating system on, maybe revamping some hardware. You know, if you're like me, you got all kinds of old hard drives and stuff laying around, and just do it all over again. Peace out and stay free. Always got to tack something onto the video. I still can't believe they're still bragging about the fact that they defunded NPR and PBS. By the way, all the Democrats voted against that. The Borg, the child pedophiles, the child rapists, those are Democrats. All for that stuff. Anyway, and then of course, what else was it? And USAID. I think it was only like $9 billion. Do you realize how absurd that is? We're $37 trillion in debt, and we just cut $9 billion out of the federal government, and yet they want to claim that that's a victory. Oh my God. Why do I find these things so funny? I don't know. I mean, it just seems, because I guess it's just the absurdity of it all. It just hits you. I mean, now, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that we got NPR and PBS and USAID done, but I mean, my God, $9 billion. Oh, and they're going to take a victory lap on that. By the way, Susan Collins and Murkowski out of Alaska, those two are Democrats. We got to primary them out. Let's get rid of them. That's Maine and Alaska. We got to get rid of them. Yeah, Maine, Alaska. Hope somebody there watches my video.